It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by the Riverview Hospital in Wisconsin Rapids and Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320, as well as on the web at WFHR.com. It's time for our monthly visit with City Hall. Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink is here for the entire program, and the phone lines will be open for you folks to talk with your mayor at 715-424-2600 or pound 1320 on your U.S. cellular phone. With that, we welcome the mayor of Wisconsin Rapids, Zach Vruwink. Good morning, Your Honor.
Carl, good morning.
Okay, I know the last time we talked, you were getting ready, like a lot of other avid sportsmen, for the deer hunting season. So did you have any luck?
I was not successful.
You and the governor both have the same problem.
Oh, right. Well, apparently hunting in the same place or something.
Okay, but you had fun. And you didn't
It was
freeze
cold.
to it.
It was cold. Yeah. I'm not a diehard to be out there when it's that far in the temps, but I made an attempt.
Okay, well, we're glad you did. I'm glad you had some fun. Well, we'll get into the Common Council stuff in just a little bit, but we've had some interesting economic development news the past couple of weeks. First off, there was the announcement that you made along with the Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary from WEDC here to talk about that we're the 13th site or certified site, shovel-ready site over at the Rapids East Commerce Center. And then our friends over in the village of Port Edwards had an announcement about the plans for the old Port Mill. So, your thoughts about what's happening? And then we got the Buren.
We had the Buren Business Park
going
connection.
on. So, your thoughts about what's going on regionally?
Well, for starters, the certified sites announcement certainly was exciting. It was an opportunity for us at City Hall, city leaders, but also the elected on the council to take a look and to take a pause and to acknowledge their progress. I think most importantly in the process that they stood by kind of a priority or a pledge that I made to get the site up for consideration for certification, and they supported me in that process, thankfully, and thankfully we were successful. So at the end of that process, it was an opportunity to pause and kind of celebrate that accomplishment, that achievement. I really think it speaks volumes for just the need to have some forward thinking and forward planning, really related to economic development. That things just don't haphazardly happen when you're talking about economic development. Sometimes things plop in your lap, and those are great, but this was an opportunity that really for our certified site, for that business park really, which was the largest contiguous parcel that we have in any one of our business parks. So it's prime for development, as are every other piece of development or developable land, but more importantly that one, because of all the utilities that were invested to serve the site. So that was really the biggest celebration, biggest point. Obviously we're lucky number 13, and from what I understand we're the only site in the state of Wisconsin to be brought into the program this year. So all of the attention is on Wisconsin Rapids, which is a good thing for us. So now the work begins to market that site to developers and to make sure that we harness the power of the state's site selection experts, whether they're employed by the WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, or anybody in this international site selection space that are looking for sites that have the utilities. The benefit of being shovel ready and the designation there is the fact that a business could conceivably construct in 2014, and that's really the designation that we wanted to pursue, simply because economic development does take so much time, and it is an evolution, as we saw on the Port Edwards site. We can talk about that in a second. But really, I think it proves to us and to the rest of the community that we were proactive in our approach to economic development, particularly for that site and the Rapids East Commerce Park.
Have you been getting any inquiries?
We did. We do. We did. We still have the prospect that is looking at the site that we are still waiting to schedule a date in January for their site visit. We were originally scheduled to do something in December here, right before the holidays, this Friday, but that was rescheduled because their corporate executives couldn't pull together the schedule to be able to do that. So that's going to happen in January. We still do not have a date scheduled for that, but that gives us some more time to make sure that all of our players, the plan is to get them in front of Mid-State Technical College, to get them in front of the workforce folks that are working, talking about workforce development. It gives us the opportunity to make sure our message from the city is really sharp and really honed in on why Wisconsin Rapids. But more importantly, it gets them in front of the business community. people do business here, whether they're food processors or manufacturers, and there's a reason they do business here. So that gives them the opportunity to hear directly from the horse's mouth, if you will, of why our workforce, why our business community, why our governmental entities are aligned to work with business. So we want them to be our talking head or our mouthpiece. You know, we can say it from our own perspective, but they can be, because the proof is in the pudding for them. So that site visit will be very important.
Okay, is it out of state or?
From what we understand, we don't know the name of the company. That has not been disclosed to us. We've been working with a site selector out of Chicago. He's based out of Chicago, along with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, which deals with the site selection as well. But what we do know is we are the only site in Wisconsin they're vying for. So that means we're not pitted against any other community in the state and trying to lure them here, and you get winners and losers. Real winner will be the state of Wisconsin, should they decide to locate here. So harnessing the power of the state incentives will be very important for us, in recognizing whether it's tax income or if it's income tax breaks. You know, at the end of the day, we want to be able to have the state really play the most in terms of incentives, so it's not balanced on the back of local taxpayers. They haven't asked for incentives. We haven't gotten to that stage yet, so that'll happen after their site visit here when they come in January, hopefully. As far as the corporation, it is a Wisconsin company. They do have a Wisconsin presence. That's what has been disclosed to us.
Okay, so
it's a well-known company, they tell us. So whoever that well-known company is, you know.
Does that make it tough for you?
Absolutely.
You don't know
everyone wants to know who it is, and that's primary, right? Everyone wants to know who is it. But beyond that, you know, it helps us know that Wisconsin values, I think, are important. That they're a Midwestern company. They know our work ethic, and they know what we're about.
Right.
So you know, there's not going to be any surprises that it's a Silicon-based company or a Texas-based company. They're going to be asking for a lot of handouts or something. They understand Wisconsin values, and I think that's going to be important for us in the process.
Okay. And then we move on to Port Edwards, and a very ambitious plan for reconfiguring that whole complex into a research part research and applied research and a business park.
Yeah.
And they've already got parcels that are ready to be occupied. So
Yeah.
your thoughts. You and I were at the
Sure.
news conference.
Yeah.
You saw the presentation. I did.
As you did, yep. Yeah, it certainly is exciting for the village, but I think it's most importantly exciting for the region. We know that business will and can land outside of the city boundaries, and that is a good thing. And I think it further exacerbates the need for a regional economic development approach, and we can talk about that after we talk about Buren. But I really think the Port Edwards site is a completely different approach than what the city is, and so it's very complementary in that respect, that it isn't redundant. Yes, available land on the surface is redundant, but you have available land everywhere, you know, in the towns and the villages and the city. So what their approach is really more on the research, applied research, and providing collaborative relationships for universities and others to participate, but then also work alongside manufacturing. So if it's paper manufacturing and biomass, or whether it's ERCO, for example, which is located very closely to that facility there. So bottom line is it's incredibly exciting because that facility will have activity now for the first time since Domtar closed a little over 5 years ago. So while the communities were waiting and apprehensive, who is going to buy, what are they going to do, we now know. And I think now we can move forward as a region to market that facility and understand what are the strengths that facility has over some of the others.
And what's nice as compared to some other communities that have had plant closings and you get someone into the salvage, it's a salvage operation, it's not really, they have no plans for it beyond the salvaging what's left. These folks are coming in with a game plan.
Yeah, millions of dollars in investment. I mean, and they don't want to leave. Their plan is to stay property manager, owner of the property, you know, unless they parcel and sell some of the sites off or something, but they want to own the facility. And rarely do you see that the case in developers. They want to make a quick buck and get out, and oftentimes at the expense of the local community. So I think that really is exciting for the village of Port Edwards.
And then we go to the village of Buren, and the business park, which is a cooperative arrangement in part with the with Wood County, but its proximity to the Rapids East Commerce Center, getting activity there, it would seem that it will help that whole area in terms of future development.
You bet.
That whole corridor.
And in the same vein as the previous two business parks, Rapids East Commerce has all the utilities, underground utilities that would serve the site. They also have some rail access if the business needs that. Port Edwards obviously has unique amenities, proximity to the river, it's got proximity to power, those types of things. And then you look at Buren. Buren's going to use the city's wastewater facility should they get a wet user, they're called, a wastewater user. Will it compete? Absolutely, as will any business park compete. But when businesses are searching for a site to select, they don't look at who's competing against who necessarily in the immediate region. They may in an initial survey, but they're going to quickly make that decision of which one is best for them. So I don't view it as competition. You know, I think bottom line is it's more activity in the region, and it proves to the rest of the world and the rest of the central greater Wisconsin community really that we mean business, that we truly are vested in economic development. And here's 3 examples of how we're able to do that. You know, I think the proximity to 54 obviously is a benefit to the Buren Park, and there's others. But I think to your point, your message about the connectedness to the Rapids East commerce, absolutely. I mean, one park could house the warehousing or packaging process. The other one could be the flip side, right, and whatever may complement the facility.
And the bottom line with all of these projects, the workforce is going to be coming from, there will be Wisconsin Rapids residents working in these businesses.
Right.
The workforce is going to come from the entire region.
No question, no question, yeah. Heads and beds in houses, wherever they might be, paychecks and pockets. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And that gets into Reggie.
Yes, it does.
Regional economic.
Which was on the council agenda last night. You know,
how do you like our segues?
Yeah,
There's a method to my madness,
hey,
Your Honor.
You're on it, you're on it. You know, it really, everything we've just talked about really tees up absolutely everything what Reggie's about. Bottom line is we need a regional economic growth initiative, a strategy, a tactical strategy and then a plan, but then somebody who's out there executing. I, as the mayor of Wisconsin Rapids, can act and speak for the city of Wisconsin Rapids. However, I'm not paid and I'm not elected to represent the Village of Buren's business park or the Village of Port Edwards facility, but I can speak highly for them and supportive of them. In fact, I wrote letters of support to the state in the Village of Buren's case example to the state for their request. But in terms of Reggie, it's amazing. 2 years, you look back of how many meetings and you know, how much hot air went around the room. I mean, it was all good conversation. But frankly, we're now to a very tangible point where you've got regional municipalities believing in the fact that one can't exist on its own, that they have to put in some investment in economic development, that it makes sense to invest, but then also to support amongst their partners. I mean, again, you may live in one municipality and work in the other, but they have to work together for the region to be stronger. And so I think that's what we're seeing. You know, council's decision last night finally was a validation of that, I think, and we were kind of last to the party, if you will. County was in first, and Pittsville is in, and Grand Rapids is in, and others. So, you know, I think you're going to see more as we move forward. The question is now, how do you measure the progress and the results? Okay, so Reggie has met. They talk about the need for regional strategy, manufacturing and food processing being the two leading industries that we'll probably see some success with. And I would say that the prospect in the Rapids East Commerce Park is a food processor. So yes, there's promise with food processing, as we've seen. In fact, Mariani, this is a kind of a tangent, but Mariani recently has announced that they're going to be adding some more capacity to their facility, 20 employees that they're going to be hiring. In fact, those positions are out there right now to apply for. If anyone's looking for a job, Mariani has got 20 opportunities right now. So when you see those you know, incremental growth, right, 5, 10, 20 at a time, and Reggie, you pile that with somebody that has truly some economic development experience and depth to the position, to the knowledge of the position, we really feel that we have a strategy to be competitive and a winning strategy at the end of the day.
And you look at the assets this community has. For instance, there was a affordability of housing index that came out a couple of weeks ago by, I think it was the State Realtors Group, and Wisconsin Rapids was one of the most affordable in terms of housing. Well, if you're building say a plant in the Rapids East Commerce Park, and you're going to be recruiting maybe some of your management to come to Wisconsin Rapids, that's an amenity that you can offer someone in the move. Hey, listen, you're going to get a nicer house, and I just help to reduce your house payment.
That's right, and your relocation costs are reduced because they may be coming from a larger metropolitan area, for example. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's where this regional economic developer, really this economic development coordinator, whatever the person, the guru that knows economic development, really will be able to sell and build on the assets. I mean, I can speak again to the assets of the city, but regionally there are far more assets that are collectively really speak to the greater Wisconsin Rapids area, and I think that's what I'm most excited about in that piece.
so far, and it's not even, well, Saturday is the official start of winter, although meteorological winter began on December 1st. That's the record keeping of the books. That's, that's what that means. The National Weather Service goes on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
December through February is their winter quarter. But we've already had the snow, we've had to have the salt out, we've had people complaining. We've had, okay, how is it looking in terms of budget, how this winter might affect the city of Wisconsin Rapids? Are you prepared for all eventualities?
Well, that's a great question. In our snow removal area, we budget on a 3-year average. So any sort of carryover that we had, so 2 winters ago, for example, we had a really kind of favorable winter in terms of to the budget. So there are dollars that were carried over to that. Now this last spring was, or this last winter, early this year, I should say, really was a challenge on the budgets. I don't have a pro forma in front of me that speaks to the numbers specifically, but I can say that we do budget on an average, and those dollars are carried forward. So while we've had these 1, 2, 3 inches are not fun for anybody, because you got to get out there and shovel just as frequent as if you had 8 or 10 inches in one snowfall.
And now you look, holy buckets, we got a bunch of snow now because of all these little snowstorms.
Right. And the nice thing with some of the materials prices with salt and some others, we all know with gas prices the way they are in terms of positive, they've gone down in recent years, that impacts the cost of salt and the trucking and that we have been able to get the materials at a lesser cost than previous years. So buy more for the same amount of money, it's a positive thing for the municipality.
Okay. And when you look at stuff like that, one of the things people go, well, how does the city prioritize its snow plowing?
Yeah.
And so maybe we should do basically your first priority are your state highways, your major stretches.
Your thoroughfares, yeah. And then followed by, so you do your state highways, which would be 54, the Expressway, 13, or 8th Street, etc. And then followed by the collector streets. So oftentimes the Chestnuts, the Peach Streets, the
2 Mile Avenue.
2 Mile Avenue, right? Those would be your collectors. First Street, that's a collector as well. So those are the streets that are followed by the subsequent streets. So frankly, my street doesn't get plowed nearly as quickly as I would like, as many others would like, but thankfully I have all-wheel drive in my car so I can plow through it. But thankfully we haven't had any major depth to snow yet this winter. But yeah, that's the routine. And then the plow trucks are on zones. And so my plow truck driver is the same plow truck driver I've had and will have in the foreseeable future. So every one of the drivers does have a route that they follow. And it takes them, I'm trying to remember from my routine that when I plowed with them once last winter, I believe it takes between 3 and 4 hours to get through one route. So that's the time just to do a one pass. So if you're getting a lot of snow quickly in that time span, there's a good chance that it's going to build and accumulate just as quickly as they got rid of it in the first place.
What's the policy on when you call them out?
Basically, they're on notice when it starts snowing, because oftentimes, for example, yesterday's snowfall, I believe it started at 2:33 in the morning, finished up about 4, and started again at 6. Well, we know the peak travel times for the morning commute, so they needed to get out really for 2 shifts. So the guys are there about 2:30, and then they called in the second wave to finish the rest of the task. So that's the challenge of those that are balancing snow removal.
And then you had the afternoon stretch where we had a special weather advisory saying there's going to be several strong bursts of snow and strong winds going through the area.
So, makes it that much worse. Yeah, one of the worst snowfalls that they deal with is really the extended periods of time, because they're only allowed to put in so many hours, and you're not going to put them on one to violate any sort of regulations in terms of how long they can plow for. But so that's a challenge. You can't control Mother Nature, but you really have to plan the best. And so if you've got a potential for an extended snowfall, you can't have everybody working at the initial snowfall, because it's just they're not going to be able to work in the afternoon or in the evening.
And I would imagine that's one of the things you've been looking at in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, process improvement.
And how efficient we are in terms of getting these crews out to their locations.
Well, part of it is just data, getting measurement. So knowing how long it takes to run a route is the starting point. The second piece you follow up with that is, are they doing any backing and turns? UPS was made famous for no left turns because there was a time delay, a waiting. Well, that's waste in materials for fuel, waste in time of the driver. So the routes have never changed, and if they've changed slightly. Same thing goes for our garbage routes. So anything that requires a regular process that we perform throughout winter, but we're in the process of collecting data on a number of those aspects, and that's one of them that's going to be considered.
And once you get that data and you analyze it, it could result in some changes that the public might see.
Absolutely, and I think it won't be too many impactful changes or noticeable changes in the snow removing piece, because it just, bottom line, snow needs to be removed. But when you talk about garbage routes, recycling routes, the frequency that we perform that service, that's something we're going to be considering in 2014. That, you know, the routes, and same thing with brush pickup, they run the garbage routes. You know, is that the most efficient, most effective way to do it when you're missing piles or you have to go run the route again? So we're paying attention to all those things, not making any knee-jerk reactions or quick split decisions on improvement, but that's where the data, when you talk about our process improvement, is absolutely critical. You can't make decisions on emotion. It has to be data-driven.
And that's what this whole process, again, I forget the name of the process.
DMAIC is so it's define, measure, analyze, improve, and then control.
Okay, and
are you maintaining the control?
Okay, and then the overall process that...
For Lean Six Sigma.
Lean Six Sigma.
A rapid improvement initiative.
Yeah, that sounds... Lean Six Sigma always says it sounds like a frat.
Yeah, it's two methodologies. The Lean is on waste, and the Six Sigma is on errors and defects. So, you know, if you're missing a signature on a form, that's an error, and it takes time. You got to send it back to the person waiting to sign it. It causes downstream wait time. You know, and government doesn't measure that stuff because there's no incentives by nature to do it. But that's been an exciting process.
And that goes back to what we were talking about before about economic development. When a business comes to town, or a local business might want to expand or do something, and they run into hassles with paperwork at City Hall, that hurts
credibility. It hurts the overall aura of doing business. I can tell you one of the projects that we have, we've got 6 projects to remind listeners on the Rapid Improvement Initiative, and yesterday we had report outs of 4 of the projects, one of which is business inspections. We have business inspections that are done by the police department, the fire department, the assessor's department, planning and zoning for inspection services there, all of which have not historically coordinated their visits. So you could have 5 or 6, I think they measured, different touches throughout the year in various businesses. So if you operate a liquor store or a bar that serves liquor, for example, that was one of them they talked about yesterday, you know, they could be there at the worst time of the day doing an inspection, and so
your lunch hour.
Yeah, so you know, I really commend, I mean, I'm grateful they believed in the vision of why this is necessary. They're starting to understand more and more, but they're paying attention to the voice of the customer. In this case, it's the business owner, right? If you can impact that business owner less and yet provide the same service and then deliver higher customer satisfaction, who wouldn't be for it? Plus, in the process, there's a payback, right? Because you have maybe less people performing the same inspection, the redundant inspections. You can send out a crew and coordinate the inspections, so you're not hitting the business owner over the head 5 times during the year. Maybe it's 1 or 2 times. You know, you're still meeting your regulation criteria, but yet you're doing it more efficiently, more effective, and improving customer satisfaction.
Yeah, because if you have a whole bunch of visits, after a while, it seems not only burdensome, it seems like harassment. How many more times am I going to be visited? I'm trying to run a business here.
Right. Fire inspections, if you're doing compliance inspections for operators, beverage operators, in the case of the liquor store or the bar or a restaurant,
Okay. Well, we're going to take our first break of this segment, and then let's get into an update on where Lean Six Sigma is going in the city of Wisconsin Rapids. You're listening to the Morning Magazine on AM 1320, as well as on the web at WFHR.com. Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink is here for the entire program. The phone lines are open if you want to talk with Mayor Vruwink, and that's 424-2600, pound 1320 on your U.S. cellular phone. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you by Riverview Medical Center. With you, it's personal, and Comfort Air.
I don't know what's happening. Start a new chat. What did I do? Okay. Wow. That is so weird.
Hey! Hi!
Oh my gosh. Hi! God, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm so nervous. Gia, you're so big. Come closer to the camera. Wait, now you're in my face. That was so good.
Good morning, and welcome back to the Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Riverview Hospital in Wisconsin Rapids. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Hilke.
Thanks again, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to today's show on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. It's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. The phone lines are open if you want to talk with the mayor. It's 424-2600, pound 1320 on your U.S. cellular phone. And, Your Honor, we've talked a little bit about the Regional Economic Group Initiative. You wanted to add one other aspect to Reggie.
Right, yeah. We talked a little bit about the municipal skin in the game and the municipal contributions. The one thing I just wanted to mention to others, people, it was asked on the council floor last night, revenue streams. How are they affording to hire and keep this position long term? So the municipal asks will be annual. So based on measurables and deliverables, the municipalities will have the opportunity to contribute on an annual basis to the Regional Economic Growth Initiative. On the flip side, the president of the chamber last night mentioned, Melissa Reichert mentioned that business owners will have the opportunity to have skin in the game. Obviously, business owners rely on a healthy economy just like the government and everybody else. So they're going to have opportunities to contribute. So small business owners will be asked to make a pledge. Large business owners, so whether they're the Alliant Energies or any foundations of those large corporations, and even the local companies will be able to, because they're obviously going to have gains with the efforts that Reggie will put forth. So I wanted to mention that there's going to be the dual funding stream of municipalities and businesses.
How much is the city committed to?
City's in for about 20,000. The county's in for about 30,000. Grand Rapids was about 2,000. I think Pittsville was like 250. It's all based on equalized value. So it was a fair assessment, essentially, of the organization.
Okay, so then you're going to take that pool of money and you're going to hire this person that's going to go out and be the professional that sells the area.
Yeah, we have just approved kind of an aggressive timeline with hiring that individual at our last meeting. In fact, we're meeting again tomorrow as an update on that process. So we're hoping that in January that we're going to start screening applicants and then scheduling interviews and that sort of thing. And our hope is that we can have this person up and running on June or July 1st at the very latest. So early summer, get the individual on board.
And the Encourage Community Foundation is involved with this.
They have seeded the initiative with $200,000 over a multi-year ability to fund. I mean, so they're kind of all in with economic.
So we got the whole community basically.
Yeah, you bet. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's go back to Lean Six Sigma. You wanted to give an update. We just talked about business inspections.
Yeah, that's the one project. That's so that's the one that's crossing the police, the fire, the assessor's office, and the planning and zoning office. So the Rapid Improvement had 30 trainees to go through the program, and then we completed our training in October. As part of the training, those that wanted to seek certification through Midstate had to co-lead or lead a team. So there is 6 projects in total. The other project that we're working on is agendas and referrals. So part of the way business gets done within the city is making a referral to city council or to a committee to act on. And so then that process, I can tell you, I have great visuals that will be talked about at the State of the City that we'll talk about at the end of the show as a save the date. But people will be astounded to see the process and how complex the process gets to get something from an idea, from a concept, to a committee, to an agenda, and then to final full council approval. So it's much easier. I say 4 steps. There's what they call hidden factories amongst each of those steps.
Well, let's get to our first call for this morning. Good morning. You're on the air with Mayor Vruwink.
Yeah, did the mayor just say that Grand Rapids just put in just around 2,000 for Reggie?
Yes, I believe so. It's based on equalized value.
I think it was over 7,000, wasn't it?
Oh, you know what? You're right. You're right. Grand Rapids is 7,000. Thank you for the correction. Yes.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, so it's 7,000 based on their, and it's based on equalized value.
Yes. I have my numbers wrong here.
Okay. So we're looking at the teams.
So we've got the agendas and referrals process, and so they've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how they can simplify the process and also
make it more understandable for the citizen.
And consistent. So every committee, and we've got 3 standing council committees, and then we've got all of the other committees and commissions that work gets done, planning commission, airport commission, etc. All have a different process and a different way of doing things. So if a resident goes from one committee to the next, completely different process oftentimes, and things may take longer or less than one committee than the other. So we're just trying to analyze all of the data. And then the errors. Should things get to an agenda, or is there a policy or a procedure in-house? So if somebody is requesting a variance for something X, whatever it might be. If we have a policy or an ordinance that addresses it, it really shouldn't get to an agenda, because that's the whole point of a policy. If you want the policy changed, bring the policy change to the council. Don't make an exception resident by resident or requester by requester. It just makes patchwork, and the policy
too many variances, and
and the policy doesn't stand anymore. So why have the policy? So that's the other process. There's a team working on that, which it's been interesting to watch their progress. Another one has been the stock room. So the street department has a stock room, and in that stock room are tons of supplies, from Comet to clean bathrooms to oil filters to belts, etc. I mean, you can, I don't know the number of inventory items they have in the stock room, but what they've done is part of the Lean Six Sigma methodology is how many times are things touched, and so they have taken a bunch of time doing the measurement. So there's DMAIC, there's the define the problem, and there's measure, what measurement exists, and if there isn't any measurement, they have to go do the data collection themselves. So there's a data collection plan that goes along each of the projects, and so they've determined that things like paper toweling and toilet paper and others can take up to 12 touches for things to get to its final destination or the requester. So batteries, I mean, you can go down the list. So what they've determined, even before they even determined that it was 12 touches, as many as, that the people in the department thought it was one touch. Well, every time there was a step in the process, it was never quantified. So they didn't realize that the process was inefficient, and that's oftentimes the case. It's not the person's problem or the person that's performing the work or many people performing the work. It's all the steps up and down from the request.
Okay.
That's been an interesting one to watch. So that takes us through stockroom, and they're making some great progress in recognizing that there's probably a lot more efficient ways to do that, and maybe we don't need to have the inventory in the first place. If the fire department needs a pack of batteries, do they need to request it from the street department? Maybe not. Or City Hall. We've got bathrooms, for example. Can't we just stock all the bathroom supplies there? So I know that's kind of an oversimplification of it, but that's really what the project is looking at, is that piece. And then the group that I'm involved in, which is monthly brush pickup. Right now, and since the 90s, we've provided monthly brush pickup to residents. And part of the process is, in the defining the problem, is we recognize that the cost for that service has escalated every year, and for what reason? And so we started to kind of roll up our sleeves and say, well, what's going on? So the last 2 months of the brush pickup summer, we did data collection. We counted how many pickups we actually did, how many piles were missed, so that's the errors. How many times did drivers drive by the route or drive by a parcel or a home and not see that there was a pile, or maybe the homeowner didn't have it out there in time, didn't follow the policy or procedure. And then the other piece was, what is the policy? What did we agree to do for the service? Well, we come to find out we don't have a policy. The council never approved a policy. There was a committee in the early 90s that approved it, but it hasn't been adopted by the formal council. So kind of left scratching our heads saying, okay, we budget for this service every year. We've done it since the 90s, but we don't have a policy. It's just something we do. Okay, that's fine and dandy. Clearly residents find it valuable. So right now we're looking at what could our policy be. Frankly, we're not going to provide lot clearings in the future. It costs the city, and frankly, for a few people that take advantage of the service, a lot more resources, manpower that could be applied in other places. So that's what that project is looking at. So this summer and early spring, we're going to be doing some more data collection when the snow melts and
people start
resumes. Picking up their yards. And so we're going to assess that service and determine, okay, how many people are taking advantage of it? Is there an awareness issue? Do people not know when it is, and that sort of thing?
Okay.
So that's an interesting one. And then which one am I missing? There's one more project. Oh, the library. In their data collection, recognize that in their book drop-off, for example, that they have 750,000 times they handle materials. I mean, 750,000 times they touch materials, different materials throughout a year. I think it was their cycle, 12 months. And so what they did is they've made some great progress and been very fast moving through, but they've had some major improvements in how many times and the efficiency. I think they went from, for example, let's say you request a material, and they have a process once it comes in from a different library that maybe by 5 or 6 at the end of the day, they normally would get the material ready for you to pick it up. Now they've shortened that timeline to about noon or 1 in the day. So that's 4 or 5 hours every single day that people will now be able, their staff members can devote to doing something else. So again, it's
that's the benefit, and it's improved service for the consumer of the library. The person that's picking up the material, they can get it quicker.
That's right. Absolutely. Customer satisfaction. Voice of customer again.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got to take one more break, and then we'll be back with more here on the Morning Magazine.
You can sit with me Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
And we also welcome our friends from River Cities Media here, and which reminds me to give a shout out to Tom Laux, who I guess is recovering from some surgery. And Tom, hey, I wish you the best, my friend. Hopefully you're back. I know what you're going through, but be patient. The mayor has said, take it easy.
Take your time so you full recovery.
That's right. We want you back healthy and happy.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Okay. Let's talk about an annexation that had some discussion last night and it got rejected.
Yes, it did. Unfortunately, that's my opinion. I don't have a voting member. I don't have a vote on the council, but I did have a vote on the Planning Commission. So back in December 2nd, the Planning Commission held a request in a public hearing as part of a development that was proposed by a developer on the corner of 8th and Whitrock, so 8th Street South of Whitrock. It's the vacant land that recently was cleared in recent years. There was a home, and I can't remember if the home is still there or not, but there was a home there. I think the home has been removed, and there was a family that was left with the property, and so they had, after many years of trying to find somebody to purchase the property, there was a group called the Miller Valentine Group out of Cincinnati, Ohio, which deals in multifamily housing, and their model is very different, I think, than most multifamily developments that we have in the city at present. In fact, this would be their first Wisconsin development. I believe they're in 18 states, I think is the statistic that he shared last night. But that property isn't in the city, it's in the town of Grand Rapids, and part of what they want to do there, they will need sewer and water, and frankly, I think anybody that does anything there or proposes anything there would need sewer and water to do that. It's not kind of out of line to expect that. So the development was a multifamily, but because it's in the town of Grand Rapids, they have to petition for annexation. So they did that. They petitioned to the state and got their signatures. The Planning Commission then has to hear that request in the public hearing. And then part of that annexation, they proposed what they wanted to do in that space. When an annexation happens to the city, it automatically comes in as R2, so single-family housing is the zoning that gets put on there. So you could only have single-family homes, and frankly, single-family homes and 8th Street don't mix.
No.
So they, in kind of an expected request, then requested for that to be rezoned from B2, provided that the annexation be successful. So part of that process, they proposed an $8 million housing development of about 56 units. It would be Section 42 housing, meaning that there are some income qualifications. I believe the number was 42,000 was what the cap could be of a wage earner to live in the property.
Okay.
And so the wages are dictate who can live there, but then beyond that, the rents are also capped at about $900, I believe. I don't have the exact numbers written down in front of me today, but it would be proposed 2- and 3-bedroom, and then it'd be 3 stories tall. It'd be one of the few 3-story, multi-story buildings that we have in the city, but really a break in terms of what other multifamily has looked like in the city. They're proposing to build it to Wisconsin green built standards, so there's a much higher criteria than putting up a bunch of drywall and stick built that we've seen in some other multifamily. So they petitioned the annexation. Annexation passed the Planning Commission on December 2nd. They also had the rezoning public hearing, and so adjacent property owners were able to speak their mind about the development. Many of which are also in the town of Grand Rapids because of the parcels in Grand Rapids at present, so the neighbors are also in Grand Rapids. Then it passed the Planning Commission. Many of the Planning Commission members felt that it was a break from what 8th Street proposes. Now, would we like to see more commercial development? Absolutely. Frankly, it would come in at B2 commercial, and they could develop commercial there, but that wasn't their intent. And frankly, anybody that drives up and down 8th Street, and even from our own estimation, we have an adequate or maybe even an oversupply of commercial property. You can see that in the vacancies of some of the large developments. So there's nobody clamoring to build commercial, especially new commercial on 8th Street, or for us even to start dealing with the vacant commercial properties, some that are blighted, some that are also contaminated. So this was a development that they proposed, 56 units. It'd be income qualifications, and then pending the annexation approval, it would be Zone B2. Pasek Planning Commission went to the council last night, and so the council had some discussion about it. I think the majority of the council members all the council members that voted for it believed that it was a worthwhile request. We were missing one council member last night, so of the 8, we needed 6 to vote in favor of the annexation according to state law for it to pass. So the annexation was voted down 5-2, with the one member being absent.
What, 5-2, yes, or?
In the opposition. So
Okay.
it was a 5 in favor, 2 opposed, but
You needed 6.
the dissent, yes, had it because we needed 6. So frankly, I'm very disappointed because I felt very favorably of the developer,
Yeah,
number one.
what was the problem with?
Well, really it came down to one of the members speaking very favorably, very much against any sort of housing development on A Street. And I think, there's a distinction that can be drawn. It wasn't single-family homes. It wasn't, nice condos or something. And, there isn't really a place. But it was a nice buffer to the landowners completely to the east of the property who own single-family homes. So frankly, would you like a big box and garbage cans and dumpsters to
Yeah,
look out your back window? Probably not. So in the flip side, so he was also very concerned that A Street had some traffic concerns, that this development would add so much more traffic to the district, which I think all the retailers, all the business owners would like that. A Subway across the street, a Walmart down the road, the rest of the businesses that are in restaurants that are on A Street. The developer made a comment. The more rooftops comes more development. There's more people with money in their pockets to spend on goods and services. So that member felt very strongly about. So it was Alderperson Kirkpatrick felt very strongly about traffic on 8th Street, which I think,
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have, that goes to that, something that was talked about at the Port Edwards news conference, getting that that new bridge and getting some of that traffic off.
Right, the bypass. And I think there was some conversation about that last night. It was disconnected but connected in that respect. But the conversation gravitated towards the fact that is Madison doing something? Is the county doing something? And yes, that project has a life of its own outside of this one single request. But hey, if we had another big box that located on A Street, would we deny it because the fact that there might be more traffic on A Street?
I mean, come
so
on.
I was really left dumbfounded with the vote, with his position on that piece, particularly because that member also was very favorable, very opposed to any sort of wastewater increase in the sewer utility. However, this would add 56 new users. And he feels very strongly that we need more users on our wastewater facility. So I'm really left questioning, I'm holding my chin right now. Another member was opposed to it, and I didn't hear what Marion Hokamp had said, why she didn't support it. I know she made some comments about the bypass, so I'll be connecting with her just to see.
Is there a way we can get this thing still done?
Well, so I did speak to the developer last night about 8 o'clock. He was driving back to Ohio, and I sent him an email. I said, give me a call. I'm available on my cell phone, so you're always on duty when you're mayor, and so he and I had a conversation. If they feel that they have a reasonable feeling that this could be approved, they would come back in January. There's a couple of things at play, however. There's about a $20,000 investment they need to make, both in they do need to do a brownfield study on the site to make sure there's no contamination, and they also plan on doing more of a comprehensive planning housing study to find out what is the opportunity for them, what's the market rates going to bear for rents and et cetera. So they need to spend some money, and I can understand as a business owner, you're not going to spend money if there isn't reasonable understanding that it's going to be approved. So they feel that if we can get 6 members on the council to support the annexation request, they feel very strongly with the state that the tax credits are there for this property. Wisconsin Rapids was recommended to them by the state as a place to develop. And frankly, that site is not going to develop unless it's in the city. And if this is what the best and highest use, that a developer is willing to spend $8 million, and they explicitly will hire local contractors. I mean, it was like a perfect story. Stevens Point denied a development the other day, and they were going to give them $500,000 for this development. The city isn't giving this developer a dime to develop this property. They're not asking for anything. They want to develop it. But yet, the council, it just didn't fly. So.
And this gets to being business friendly.
Absolutely.
Do you want jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the message? What's a headline going to read? You know, future developers are going to look at that information before they consider a community. But yes, my consensus was if we can get the members to support it, the requester will come back in January. That'll be their last ditch. They have to get this into the state by January 31st, I believe, for approval. So
what you going to do to try and get that 6th vote?
Well, I've got to make some phone calls, and I've already talked to a couple members on their position, and the ones that were in support, a couple of them that I've spoke to have solidified in that position. So I need to get the one member who wasn't there to support it.
Yeah, so come on, people, this is common sense.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that makes an average person shake their head.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
Absolutely. So the message out there is, yes, we had some members on the council that supported it. You had a mayor that supported it. We're by the skin of our teeth, didn't get it done. So we're hopeful that next month we can redeem ourselves.
Okay. We got another caller real quick. And quickly, you're on the air with Mayor Vruwink.
Good morning. I was wondering if there's any type of compensation or help you're talking about promoting development. Recently I had some residential lot city improvements that came through like $200 a foot, and those lots don't sell to recoup that cost. I guess, is there any way to recoup that cost?
You're talking about the improvements of sewer and water extension to the property.
Gutter, street surfacing.
So in terms of now trying to sell the lots for somebody to build a home on it.
Right. There's the improvements cost more than what you can sell a lot for in the city, it seems.
I think that we talked about that with the revaluation recently too, in terms of what value was applied to certain parcels. In terms of incentives, we don't have anything specific proposed. I'd entertain any ideas though, whether it's building permits that would be waived to help you offset the cost. And I think there's a couple of things that we can do. Nothing has ever been proposed to us, and I'd entertain it.
Okay, I guess just looking for ideas. I guess too.
Well, that's how it all starts, is putting it out on the table and letting them hash it out.
Yeah, I'd speak to other communities to see if they have any specific ideas. I don't know of any local ones that incentivize single-family homes because there just isn't the return on the investment to the city.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
I understand if you get some lot and you had the improvements, you're paying for the improvements and the housing market stuff.
Yep, no question. Yeah, and I think it gets to the overall issue of the housing. It kind of relates to the annexation and multifamily. What does our housing stock? The stat they shared last night was very, very, very minuscule amount of housing was built after 1980 and 1990. So our housing stock is aged.
Yes, this is a very older housing city.
Right,
outside of, if you want to see newer stuff, that's those subdivisions or the like out in the Grand Rapids.
Right. So we haven't done any study. I just came from a meeting this morning with the mayor of Marshfield and their planning director, and Marshfield's going about a comprehensive housing study, as is the city of Stevens Point, to look at some of these things. What is the leakage? How many people are leaving the city to build in other towns, villages? And is there reasons for that? Is there reasons that we can, curb that to make our city more appealing to build homes in, for example, or to buy a home and rehab it, to build it, to remodel it to current standards,
or help we can provide folks to help rehab homes if need be, to restore neighborhoods.
Right. There's opportunities there.
Okay. But in the meantime, some older people need to get an economics 101 lesson.
I would put a final plug. All of us, it's next year's election year for 4 of the council members, myself, and a couple of other city positions. And, beyond the city elected officials, county board, there's a number of county board seats up, town positions. We all have to earn our jobs back. And I work every year, every day to make sure that I am putting forth the right best effort, and we have to earn our jobs back. If somebody else feels that they deserve the position and wants to run a hard campaign, by all means. I think, in our city, in our region, there's no harm in throwing your name in the hat for a position. It fosters good dialogue. It's a civil conversation. Just because someone's held the position or is holding a position doesn't mean it's not a good reason to challenge them. And they're all good people. I work with all of them, know them, most of them. That it's a democracy, and people have every right to run for positions. So.
And you mentioned State of the City.
Yes, last piece, we've got a date set for the State of the City. It'll be my second address in January 29th at the library, most likely. We have not solidified that 100%, but save the date for January 29th, 6:30 p.m. We're going to do something different this year. We're going to bring City Hall directly to the State of the City, and by way of having department heads have themselves available before the council. We tried it last year, and we're going to do some things different this year with it, and my address will be at 7 p.m., so January 29th.
Okay, and with that, Merry Christmas to you and
Yes.
everybody. Any Christmas message for
Yeah,
the city?
absolutely. To our residents and visitors, we wish them safe travels and an enjoyable holiday season, and I'll be back in January.
Okay.
your show.
You have a happy holiday season, and
You as well.
we'll see you next year.
That's right. Thanks, Carl.
Okay, and with that, we're going to wrap up today's edition of the Morning Magazine, which has been brought to you by Riverview Medical Center. With you, it's personal, and Comfort Air.